So I wanted to start this off with a story. My friend messaged me and he was talking about how he can't run this new game. And this new game is called Ark Survival Ascended. No, Ark Survival Evolved. This is basically a reimagined version of that game that just came out here, and this one was made in Unreal Engine 5, and that's why if we go to the reviews here, it's pretty much a mixed bag. My PC is on life support because of a dinosaur game. Barely works, crashes every 10 seconds, runs at 10 FPS. Ark is back, baby. He didn't know this game was going to be that bad, but it's actually terrible. So he owns a GTX 1080 Ti, which back 6.5 years ago was a very fast graphics card. But today, it's kind of more to the lower mid-range. I was like, hey, I have a 6800 XT that I was like, hey, you can borrow this because I'm not really using it. I use a 7800 XT, which is very similar to the 6800 XT. I'm in a position where I can do that, but a lot of people aren't able to do that. And he asked me if he could actually borrow that graphics card, especially at the resolution that he plays at, which is 1440p. And he was even scared that this 6800 XT will be able to keep up. And he saw online that even a 4070 Ti in Ark Survival Ascended caps like 55 frames with low quality. 1440p. Now that is absolutely killer. And then he was like, I'm scared that my CPU will bottleneck this. I asked him, what does he have? Well, he has an Intel Core i5 10600K. Yeah, he's in a position where he's like, I don't even know if I can play the game because even if my GPU is fast, this game is going to take so much from my CPU that it's difficult to get into a position where he can run the game. I was like, well, it might get you 60 FPS, but I kind of doubt it. And then he just responded with, just imagine the word. I'm not going to swear in the video. This seems like the situation that a lot of people are in with systems you thought were pretty good a few years ago, and all of a sudden with these new games coming out, everything was fine a year ago. I'm always someone who literally would go to the absolute extents. This is my first PC I built in like 2016, you know, a little bit less than $500, and I think it was very capable for the time. I didn't really have to turn down settings or anything, and I was on a pretty extreme budget buying parts. I bought the CPU used, the motherboard used, and the graphics card used. The rest of the components I didn't want to buy used. But when I look at 2023 here, I put together a list of components to try to make a budget PC with used components again. Like, could I still manage to do this in 2023? I was still able to make a PC build that does come out to a little bit under $500, just like the used one that I built in 2016. But the thing about these components is, say the CPU, the R5 3600, if we go back to Ark Survival Ascended, this is literally the minimum spec for recommended to basically get you like 60 FPS within this game. And if we also look at Alan Wake 2 with the system requirements for this game, looking at the 3700X is the minimum or close to it recommended CPU for this game too. The graphics card that I picked, the 5700 XT for this budget bare minimum system, yes, the 5700 XT is a fast card and a good value at $130. I've recommended this multiple times, but I kind of have a fear for its longevity because in a game like Alan Wake 2, you can't use a 5700 XT because it doesn't support mesh shaders and it runs pretty bad because of it. Like, you're capped at like 30 FPS at 1080p with FSR performance on. It's like, even if you are very budget conscious when you're shopping, you're willing to make compromises. These compromises are already the bare minimum right now. What is it going to be a few years down the line as games even possibly get more demanding? With my PC in 2016, I was able to play the latest games if I wanted to. But this PC, I'm not sure if you could. That makes me think is like, well, if you want to get a reasonable PC, then you'd have to get a 5600 for the CPU, which is $40 more expensive than the other one. I'd recommend getting 32 gigabytes of RAM just to be on the safe side. I'd recommend getting a 6700 XT because it's faster than this 5700 XT. Plus, it comes with 12 gigabytes of VRAM, which gives me more comfortableness with it. Yeah, that brings the total up to $680, getting close to $700 for, in my opinion, the bare minimum, like reasonable PC that has somewhat of a future and will last you a few years. But I know a lot of people aren't going to buy used components or anything like that. So let's also look at what you could get new. So I would actually go with the same price for the processor on the new market with a 5600, but that's only $130 on the new market. You're actually only saving 20 bucks by buying it used, and that's really not that big of savings that I think is like worth it or anything like that. Your motherboard does cost a little bit more, and then if you want to be reasonable, you get 32 gigabytes of RAM. This is $60. You can get a terabyte of NVMe storage, so very fast SSD. It's not the fastest that's out there, but it's like under 50 bucks. But then if you want to get a 6700 XT, they're about $310 on the new market right now. I just chose like an ATX case that, you know, is reasonable in price. And honestly, this is a bronze rated power supply, which isn't very efficient. That doesn't mean it's low quality, but it isn't very efficient. Say 80 bucks for a power supply. That's kind of expensive, not gonna lie. In my opinion, I would just end up building it new, because this doesn't save you a whole lot of money on the used market. It's really expensive just to get into PC gaming. You could technically go ahead and take out the 6700 XT graphics card and instead put in a 6600, which is a more budget oriented graphics card for $190. But honestly, this card, I've tested it. It's okay, but I think its lifespan is pretty limited. It has 8 gigabytes of VRAM and it's decently slow in new games right now. And this could technically get you to a budget of like $660, which isn't terrible to get your foot in the door. But at the same time, this is a much more compromised experience, and I think you get a lot better value by getting to 6700 XT than stooping down to the 6600. A lot of you guys might have also noticed with this build is really, this doesn't have that much upgrade potential, you know, other than throwing in a higher powered GPU in it eventually down the line. But this platform that the Ryzen 5 5600 is on is a dead-end platform. If you actually wanted to get a more reasonable experience and have upgrade potential, that means you have to make another jump with your CPU. You have to take out your CPU, your motherboard, and your RAM. And now you can finally go on here, and I'd recommend going AMD right now, because AMD does have a platform that you would think is going to last for a few years and you'll at least get a few upgrades, whereas Intel's new 13th or 14th gen CPUs really don't have a lot of lifespan built into them anymore, because that is a dead-end platform now. AMD Ryzen AM5 platform, and I'd probably go with an R5 7600. And this comes with a CPU cooler, so that's decent, I guess. If you want to get a motherboard, I'll just say this MSI one. I don't know if it's good. Don't take this as a hard recommendation or anything like that. The motherboards are more expensive on this new platform as well. You're looking at $180 on this one instead of on AM5 instead of AM4, and your CPU at base price costs a lot more. If you also want to get memory, you have to get DDR5 memory now. I'm pretty sure DDR5 6000 is good RAM, and we could probably add that to the cart, which is like 40 bucks more than what RAM cost before, actually 50 bucks more. Maybe this is a little bit of fancy RAM. Just to get something that's reasonable is over $1,000, and this might sound cheap to some people. $1,000, that's nothing to spend on a PC. $1,000 is $1,000, y'all. And I'll even say this, RX 6700 XT, it is a good card and a good value card, but I do also question if this is going to be fast enough a few years down the line with how games are trending right now. So if you wanted to buy a card that might last a few years, and we're getting out of budget territory at this point, probably recommend getting, I don't know, 7800 XT, which boom, brings you up to $500 for your graphics card instead of $300. And just like that, now we're at $1,200 for a PC for something that is this is a reasonable mid-range system that will probably last you a few years into the future. But at the same time, $1,200 for a PC, something that is just discretionary. You don't need to build a PC unless you use this thing for work. This whole thing, it's hard to get into PC gaming right now. Really, most of these components are kind of reasonable. Like, I don't really mind the price of CPUs. I think CPUs are getting faster, they're getting competitive. I think you get a decent motherboard for $180. I mean, I wish it would be a little bit less, but I think this one is reasonable enough. This RAM is a little expensive. I'd love to see RAM prices with DDR5 come down a little bit more. Storage isn't that expensive. Like, you can get a terabyte NVMe drive for under $45 right now. This is a lot better than when I built my PC in 2016. I didn't get a 1 terabyte hard drive back then. We're seeing games that are ramping up so significantly with their demands, with graphics and stuff like that. And we're also seeing this crazy stagnation with the graphics card market, where we're not getting that much generation on generation. Again, I've always been somebody who prioritizes value a lot, and seeing these graphics cards that are freaking $1,200, a card like this makes me so uninspired. Like, I would never buy this. It just seems like a complete waste of money. If you want higher end performance, it's also super expensive. So this is bad for people who want to get into the budget side of gaming, or people who want to get into the higher end side of gaming, because now they're price gouging you like crazy. Yeah, this situation is absolutely terrible. I don't know what we can do about it other than kind of wait it out and see if this will get more reasonable over time. Again, let me know if you guys are building right now and why you're building right now. Is it necessary? Are you upgrading for the new games coming out? Or if you're buying a new PC, are you scared of the market right now? I'm really curious. Hopefully this gets better. Hopefully. I can't guarantee anything with these companies, but anyways, that's been it for me. I'll see you guys in the next video. Y'all have a good one, and peace.